hands is placed a power greater than their hoarded gold, greater than the might of atoms, magnified 1,000-fold. We can bring to birth a new world from the ashes of gold.
Fucking chain murderers! Fucking country, you're cesspit! Where's fucking Malone? We want our country back! And we're going to get it back! Yes, you may spin, you fucking scumbag! Oh.
Listen, see if you're justifying this. You're justifying the unjustifiable. Bottom line.
Okay, I'm
Right,
just trying.
do you have a spare room in your house?
I don't know.
Right, well, does any of your family?
No.
Do anybody have a spare room? Because if you do you want to put them up? And then it saves one more house for somewhere else? Tommy Robinson!
Belfast, August 2024. A far-right demonstration is organised after 3 young girls are killed in a knife attack in Southport, England. Widespread riots broke out in a number of towns and cities after the arrest of a 17-year-old boy from Cardiff. It was enough to embolden rampaging mobs after news spread that his parents were immigrants. I came that day to film what I believed would be a somewhat uneventful protest. But the scenes witnessed in England now seemed a pretext for what could happen in Belfast. While we've witnessed the Union flag flown alongside Nazi and Confederate emblems and displays of supremacy throughout the North over the years, it wasn't in the script to see the Irish tricolour displayed in an alien display of right-wing solidarity. The flags and a banner were unfurled by protesters from Coolock, Dublin, who joined Loyalists in an unfamiliar show of support. So what motivated this unprecedented act? What was the common thread that brought these groups together after the events in Southport?
I mean, so Coolock is probably just one place of many where we've seen the far right mobilise on a local basis, and you know, in effect, there's a fairly recognisable playbook. So where somewhere is kind of identified as a setting for emergency accommodation or proposed emergency accommodation, what you will see is, you know, very often a Facebook group being set up, WhatsApp groups being set up, spreading of rumours that, you know, women are going to be attacked, and lots of kind of negative imaging and messaging around that are deliberately designed to whip up people's kind of fears, really high intensity emotional kind of stuff. And that's a playbook, I guess, of whipping up emotions, putting these frames on it to say, well, it's actually, you know, what's going to happen is going to be really dangerous to your community in different ways, and then trying to bring people out onto the streets. And so we've seen this play out in towns and villages right across the country. Coolock is not dissimilar in that regard. So it became a kind of a sort of a flashpoint and a heat point at the moment, and also a sort of a magnet, I guess, for people to gather at as well. And in ways, what you have is very often across these, you know, multitude, I guess, numerous kind of incidents of barricades and mobilizations, is a kind of semi-networked group of people who aren't particularly from any of the particular areas themselves, but they're kind of working together, talking together in chat groups, they're sharing social medias, they're sharing the videos. And I think in that context where you had again, resulting from another brutal attack in August in Britain, where you had Tommy Robinson and others come out and put a very, you know, explicitly Islamophobic bent on this. And then we've seen that taken up, that call in August taken up by individuals in Belfast about having an, you know, Islamophobic, anti-Muslim demonstration. And so individuals, I guess, from who would have been in and around the Coolock Says No campaign, and some individuals who would have worked alongside and been in regular contact with people from the Coolock Says No campaign, travelled to Belfast, and were seen, I guess, in the you know, the footage and photos that come out later on, of being in, you know, standing beside, I guess, people from a Loyalist community, or for, you know, holding a Union Jack. And in that context, it would have been quite a distinct and unfamiliar, I guess, imagery in the context of seeing those two flags flowing together in an explicitly Islamophobic kind of setting.
Where's your medals? got any? No? Just me? I fucking fought for this. You understand what I'm saying? I fucking did. You didn't. What'd you do? You protect that lot. Unbelievable. Unbelievable, it is. It's traitors, that's all they are. It's traitors, unbelievable. I wonder though, hey, you can get this on there, I wonder if it was one of their kids. If one of their kids got stabbed, what would happen then? Would they join us? I served in Afghanistan. Royal Regiment of Fusiliers, 1st Battalion, ex-company. And then, do you know what? See all the violence and all the shit. There's no need for it. We've let them in and they're being violent to us. I've seen it myself. You can't let them in. It's not racist. It's got nothing to do with their colour.
Oh, yeah.
It's to do with their actions. It's to do with killing our kids.
Who are you working for, that camera? Who are you working for? Only asking.
He's giving the answers. It'd be nice for an
police.
answer back, but I'm not no. You're not, but you can fucking...
You're doing it for them.
You're
doing it
How about you fuck off then?
What do you think about them?
How about you fuck off just then? How about you just fuck off?
Unbelievable.
Why?
What do you think about them? What do you think about that? Right, here, come to me. What do you think of killings over in them schools? What do you think of killings over in them schools? What do you think about it? Don't be saying clowns. Talk to me.
You not answer a question, that
Talk to me.
You answer a question then.
Here, talk to me. Talk to me.
You fucking said you're a fucking idiot.
What do you think of killings over in that school over our kids? You can't? Are you a journalist? Horrific. Why aren't you protesting with us over it? What? I think it's ridiculous, but who started it? Who started it? October, you know who started it. But the only thing is, see the lefties, they don't know who started it. Sure they don't. Israel's just defending their land and getting attacked, and they're on their bunkers, hiding in schools and all, aren't they? So what do you do?
You're right, but there's 40,000 kids.
Here, the kids, I feel sorry for the kids, yeah. But why do they use the people to hide in kids' schools and all? You know what I mean? Why? Why do it? It's all terrible, like what's going on, but...
Fuck up, Bradshaw, you bastard!
There's always been a far-right influence here, and that really dates back to sort of hardcore loyalism. We've seen that with Johnny Adair. We've seen it with people who were involved in the UDA, who were also members of groups like the National Front and of combating. And that's not just, me saying that there was links between those. It's well documented. During the investigation into the murder of Rosemary Nelson, a solicitor who was murdered by the Loyalist Volunteer Force, during the arrest of some of the suspects, material was found which linked them to Combat 18 in Scotland, and there was also an investigation that found that Combat 18 were helping smuggle guns into the north, which were being used by Loyalist paramilitaries. Those links exist between those football firms, which would have been prevalent in the 90s and the early 2000s. In a lot of cases, they would have then had links with Loyalist gangs here as well.
This is able to move closer to us. We're here to protect our children and our grandchildren. So we are. We're not here to cause any trouble.
Over this side,
Who's over there dealing with aliens?
we don't know, but if you could just
That's because there's barely anybody over that side.
There's nobody over that side.
It's alright for them as to block one side of the road and all. Close it down to one lane. We have two people stood out 1 foot out and more or less. And trail one off. Is there going to be things fairly? Start down their face.
I'm on the face, it goes so squirt on my face, I'll fucking put you in that crowd.
Go ahead, what is it, mate? Could you have a camera? Go ahead. It doesn't fucking matter, don't threaten anybody, dickhead. Alright, take that out of my face now, dickhead.
Leave it. It's not worth it.
Fucking telling you, son.
That's what he wants.
At the end of the day, mate, they make Anti-Semitic remorse, anti-Semitic remorse, anti-Semitic, mate. Don't even start me, mate. I swear to fuck. Here, they want to smack me. Yo!
Don't be fucking threatening us, dickhead, alright? You fucking arsehole. Look at you. You're a good over a camera in your hand, son.
Say that, mate. Because I haven't a fucking clue. This is all clear.
Huh? Fucking arseholes. 6 foot under here, son.
He's really shocked or surprised by the way he's got treated because we've dealt with it for so long. That's why we're here.
One of the odd features, I guess, of this sort of new ethno-nationalism in Ireland is the proximity, which was flagged perhaps or brought into public conversation around sort of, folks from Coolock says no travelling to Belfast. But actually there's longer, more sustained links with sort of British nationalism and Irish nationalism in ways that don't make any sense to most people with a in our sort of read of history in the context of the island, regardless of your take on constitutional matters, right? So you have, for example, people within the National Party, extreme right-wing party run by Justin Barrett, there's a kind of factional fight there. One of their first members is an individual called Keith O'Brien, who goes by the name Keith Woods, and he's long worked with and live streamed with and held conversations with Mark Collett. Mark Collett is the former youth leader for the British National Party, did a documentary for Channel 4. In that documentary declared that he was interested in creating race riots, and that his heroes that he looked up to were Johnny Adair and Billy Wright. So later, after this went out, he was expelled from the BNP. Collett went on to set up this group called Patriotic Alternative, again, Hitlerite fascist organisation. And O'Brien and Mark Collett regularly are talking on streams together, right? So as late as the 8th of December this year, they were talking to each other. And so similarly, so you have this kind of weird bit where the likes of the National Party try to couch themselves in the history of like Republican struggle. The National Party went so far as to use footage from provisional propaganda videos in their own videos to try and couch themselves as sort of some continuum from the troubles and war in the North. Yet this is an organisation that was set up in 2016 with no historical links to republicanism whatsoever, but does have a relationship, an ongoing working relationships that members have with people within the British nationalist movement. And so, you would not have historically seen people who would consider themselves and describe themselves as Irish nationalists working and going talking and speaking about having a shared political project with British nationalists. It just does not make sense. Yet this is still ongoing, and those are sort of internal contradictions that movement still finds it hard to resolve. And in many ways, it's part and parcel of what we saw, for example, I think it was in late 2020, was a statement from former prisoners saying that they would have nothing, there's nothing, this sort of movement from the National Party and others has no relationship to the historical Republican struggle. So there's these inherent contradictions that that sort of reactionary far-right movement isn't able to resolve itself, and partly because it can't resolve them, because they do have a shared project, and it's ethno-nationalism, it's white supremacism, it's hate, and it's something that's like deeply rejected from the vast majority of people in Ireland, vast majority of people in the North. For either side of communities reject this kind of reactionary, homophobic, white supremacist, anti-Semitic politics.
Policing. Belfast.
Up the EDR! Our kids have rights! Up the EDR! Right! Up the EDR! Up the dickhead! Up the EDR!
Away to Gaza!
Dawson, wave your fucking rainbow flag, see what happens to us. Murders!
You racist, bruv! You
Stop! Peter Fence! Peter Fence, love it! Peter
One love, you know?
Look at the fucking look in his eye. They all know he's taking. They all know he's taking. They all know he's taking Satan in here. Here, dark, here. Darkness lives in you, boy. The darkness is with you. That's what it is.
As is consistent in many of the online accounts, there seemed to be an unhealthy obsession with pedophilia. But I had a greater interest in the actors behind the scenes. There is no doubt that many attending that day were there for more curious than nefarious reasons. But who was behind these faceless social media accounts calling people onto the streets? Sky News recently conducted a data and forensic analysis of social media accounts supporting and promoting far-right talking points, as well as sowing division during Irish protests. What transpired was that most were from outside Ireland, indicating a wider network of support. There's no doubt that figures such as Tommy Robinson are clearly influencing the Irish far-right, as we have witnessed interaction with a lot of key figures in the south of Ireland. But the question is the international money that actually Lenin receives from various groups making its way to Ireland? One man that has been a constant source of attention from the media on these issues is Jim Dawson. Named by anti-racism campaigners as Britain's most influential far-right activist, a self-confessed loyalist who was involved in the 2012 Belfast flag protests. While Dawson is open about his financial credentials in raising money for far-right organisations, he has been openly critical of Tommy Robinson and the Zionist control over the far right. I firstly wanted to ask him about his work with the anti-Islamic organisation Britain First.
During that time, we were doing these mobile patrols, remember the army vehicles? We bought a load of second-hand army trucks and we'd drive into the East End of London. It's just noising people up. But it's a very dangerous thing to do. And I think a lot of the English patriots, they don't understand what they're playing with here. If I got an army truck, put a Union Jack inside it and drove up the Falls Road with a sash blasting in it, I'm probably not coming back. It's as simple as that. They couldn't understand this because it's a hobby to them. So they think the Muslims and their religion and their fervour is a hobby to them. It ain't a hobby. They will kill you. And rightly so. If somebody's attacking your area, absolutely. I understand that. They couldn't understand this for the life of them. They couldn't understand it. But while we were doing all that, we were number one in Britain, razzling everyone up. And we'd done it to really bring... because remember, back then, it's hard to believe now, nobody was allowed to speak about these matters. So again, same tactic, kick the door off its hinges, don't open it gently, kick it off its hinges, and then we'll come to some kind of balance later. And that was the idea. But it was that time we started getting contacted with strange people. And there was a guy called Hedegaard or something, he's a European MP or something like that, MEP, can't remember, I think he was from Denmark. And people like him and other people contacted us and started wanting to meet us. And then money was getting discussed. And on one occasion I was offered £300,000. I said, that's nice, because it was all my money that was going out, and I thought, this would be handy if we get somebody else to pay for this. What do I need to do? And they said, you don't really need to do it. And I said, okay, what do I not need to do? And it was basically, you've also got to be supportive of Israel, but if you can't bring yourself to do that, you don't criticise them. All right? You don't, if you can promote LGBTQ plus whatever, or if you can't do that, don't criticise it. And it was like that, all these different things. And I remember saying to the wife, I've been offered £300,000, but I can't talk about the Jews or the Zionists, and I can't talk about the gays. She went, well, you can't do it because you'd be mute. You'd take a vow of silence. And I couldn't understand this. I thought, where is this coming from? But then I remembered, in 2007, just before I came into the BNP, Nick Griffin was telling me that had happened to him in 2007. He was offered the big money, and it was much the same. You don't have to do anything, but there's certain things you can't do. You've got to be tolerant of these certain things. So it's a very subtle thing, and I'm sure once they got you, once you took the money, then they'd start putting the pressure on you. But anyway, I wasn't tempted. I says, I'm not interested at all. But that happened on several occasions.
And was there another time that you were asked to lay off Tommy Robinson?
Oh, I went for a meeting. It was 2000 and maybe 15, I think. Tommy Robinson asked for a meeting with Anne-Marie Waters. That's the Irish woman who's the British. Bizarre.
We were speaking earlier on, as soon as
Aye.
I started speaking, that's your
Anne-Marie Waters, who is a pro-abortion lesbian, Irish Catholic, and she set herself up as a British nationalist. You couldn't make it up, could you, really? But anyway, they wanted to meet me, and I went and met them in Bedford, in a very, very nice place in the Bedford. And Tommy was there, and Anne-Marie Waters, and a few other people, Brian Ailing and all these London bankers. They're the guys that bankrolled the EDL. And I met them and I thought, what are these guys wanting? But I had a boy in there from my non-Ireland experience. I'm not stupid. I had a boy in there. The whole place was rigged up. Taped the whole thing. Guys sitting over there with a hidden camera. We're taping the whole shebang. And basically what they wanted to do. And at that time, we had the biggest religious right-wing Facebook in the world. And what they wanted to do was use our social media contacts. So we did about 30 channels and we could reach so many people. And their idea was to, on a certain day, have all the right-wing groups across Europe all demonstrate on a Saturday or a Friday afternoon or a Saturday, can't remember, with basically pornographic posters of the Prophet Muhammad, who I have no time for, but a man's religion is his religion. If you don't like it, don't do it. But slagging somebody's religion is dangerous business. And it's rude as well. It's just rude. And I said to them, if you do that in, like, say, Brussels or Bradford and places like that, the Muslims will react. They said, yeah, that's what we want. We want to provoke them. I said, what for? We want to provoke a civil war. I said, well, you maybe get one. If you do that, you maybe get one. Because English cops are useless. They couldn't have hold that back. We had 18,000 soldiers here and they couldn't stop us gouging at each other. And I said, okay. And being a non-pacifist, I says, okay. Why do you want to do it? They said, we're better doing it now than later because there's enough people in there. I says, okay, I get that as well. What have you got? Have you got stuff? Have you got materials where you can defend your areas and stop people getting slaughtered? They said, no, that doesn't matter. We will emerge then as the political force after it. I was never been as shocked in all my life. I've heard some crackers. I've been at some meetings in Northern Ireland and heard things after bad bombings and that. I've heard madness getting spoken. Never heard madness in that level. And I said, no, this isn't on. But all of a sudden, a few days later, I got a phone call. I was in my house and this guy said, is that yourself? I said, yes, Jim Dawson. Would you meet us up in a certain restaurant, County Down? Very nice place. I says, oh, aye, very nice. If we're going for lunch here, you'll be paying. He says, no problem, we'll meet you there. And I got there and I said, who are you? Because they introduced themselves as the police. They said, well, security forces. He says, what security forces? SO15 or what? MI5. And they said, look, we don't really give a monkey's what you're up to because we've got much bigger problems in Northern Ireland. Mad loyalist fraction everywhere and the dissidents and all the rest of it. We don't care. But the message we've got to give you is from over the water. Keep your mouth shut regarding Tommy. Mind your business. You mind your business, they'll mind yours. You cause a problem for Tommy, they'll cause a problem for you. That was it.
As we have seen with the killings in Stockport, it has been a goal of the far right to exploit such incidents in order to radicalise people and drum up anti-immigrant sentiments. Dawson's claims come as no surprise, and any opportunity to cause civil unrest has also been a tactic seen here in Ireland, most recently in the Dublin riots. The goal, as attested to by Dawson, was to shift government policy in the direction of the right.
So there's an attack, a brutal attack on Parnell Square, where some children and a carer teacher was stabbed. The nationality of that individual was released as Algerian. Now, what fell out in the streets after that, after known far-right agitators and influencers called people out onto the streets to mobilise in a very tense situation, the noise that was made about that was around, it was about this person's migrancy or their nationality. And so what we saw very quickly was that the government changed the nomination of Algeria as a safe country. So there you have a direct impact. Right, so it's, in some ways it's not about necessarily trying to get the seats, trying to get elected, if you can have a knock-on impact. And what we're seeing is that this is how the far right talk about this stuff in themselves. They'll talk about it in terms of like shifting the Overton window, which is the sort of acceptable terms of public conversation, but then also specifically changing policies within the larger parties. That's partly what they're about.
We'll take them down here and I'll get them out.
As the Belfast protest came to an end, a more sinister element began to emerge. Some from within the crowd were heard to direct protesters to move towards a mosque in Botanic. On the way, a number of businesses, including a Lebanese cafe, was attacked and the windows smashed of the premises. It had occurred to me that this crowd of loyalist and far-right elements from the south could in fact enter the lower Ormer Road area, a small nationalist enclave that has been the victim of multiple sectarian attacks throughout the conflict. And just as I had envisaged, when the crowd were stopped by police before reaching the mosques, they moved toward the lower Ormer Road.
Attention, this is a police message. No notice of this proposed public procession has been given to TV. In accordance with Section 6 of the Public Processions Northern Ireland Act 1998. It is my duty to warn you that any person organising or taking part in the procession is committing an offence and is liable to arrest and prosecution.
Our local festival will be very diverse, wide range of communities coming together. So we were down on the river preparing for that when I got the phone call from yourself. Drove to the top of University Avenue and was met by just an angry loyalist, well, they're claiming to be far-right mob, with one individual waving a tricolour. And then they proceeded to walk on down onto the Ormer Road, and in particular, it was a deliberate attempt to come to Sean Graham's, in my view. Not long after getting here, they very soon get into the catcalling, the 5-0 salutes, reminding people of the deaths of people in the lower Ormo. But what really did surprise us, there were some people within the group that were there actually felt that us as a nationalist community and them as a loyalist community could come together in a common cause against these invaders. Nearly was what they were attempting to sow within this community. But thankfully, the community came out, and particularly the women came out of this community and says, "You're not doing this in our doorsteps," and they were eventually forced out of this area. But strangely once again, we were faced with police landovers. We were faced with police with batons and Iraq gear, all faced in this community, when the only threat that came to this community was from those who came to the community on the day. Not being content on attacking a mosque or tackling Muslims, thought they would come down here and abuse the lower Ormo community.
Tell me, just to give the viewers an understanding of how sensitive it is, we have Sean Graham's behind you. Can you just tell us what it's like for this community, what it's been like?
Sean Graham's, as a particular atrocity, it's no bigger than any other atrocity or than any other community. But it's nearly, we get a yearly reminder about Sean Graham's. People come here and they taunt this community about their 5 loved ones that were murdered and the 9 people that were injured. We've seen even the collusion that we suspected when the bookmakers happened. The deaths, and when the reports come out that deaths of collusion that took place to allow Sean Graham's to happen in the first place is a constant shock and a constant reminder. We saw even during COVID when the families of this community tried to lay wreaths on the anniversary, adhering to all the guidance, and how the police made it an issue and arrested one of the family members when they were laying flowers on the anniversary, the 5th of February in 2021. So that this community and the massacre that happened is never far away. And so once again, when tensions were growing in this city, those who were increasing tensions sought to bring it to our doorstep. And some people would argue, they came here in a common cause against these invaders, but they didn't. They came here and they taunted this community. They very quickly went back to the 5-0. And that's what we face here as a community on a regular basis, annually. And it hasn't went away all these years later. families who have tried to move on, tried to get their grandkids to move on, you know, it constantly comes back to their door, as it did this year on the 3rd of August.
You know, I know about the bookie shop. I know who's involved with the bookie shop. Exactly, I know where the gun for the bookie shop was found in Tullycarnet. I know all about it. I know all about the whole thing, and it was horrific. And I'll tell you what disturbed me about the bookie shop, because I was driving in the motorway. I was going to the airport at the time when the news comes through the bookie shop had been hit. And this is middle class people are normally in cars at the back in the days in the motorway. The amount of lights and flashing and beating and punching the air by people with suits, I couldn't believe it. There's a hit against the provies. You could have seen the excuse for that. But when you find out it's 5 people in a bookie shop, old men and kids, it's the same with Loughin Island. You know, I am a loyalist, make no mistake about it. But the bookies wasn't done in my name. Now it was Loughin Island. And for that day, the guys getting up there, it's not only stupid, it's disrespectful, it's hurtful, and it's never happened.
There is no doubt that those who made the decision to provoke residents on the Ormer Road had done so in order to raise community tensions and inflame an already volatile situation. This is central to the far-right script. While in many ways these protests have been disorganised and without leadership on the ground, the online networks are ensuring that a militant far-right is growing. It is clear that these groups take cues from each other internationally. And with the world's richest man interacting with some of the most racist elements in Ireland that have very little public support, the chances are that marginal far-right groups may take hold in the future.
The fact that Elon Musk is resharing this content is a sort of bellwether around a couple of things. One is the proximity, I guess, or the sort of megaphone that social media companies give to fringe, tiny actors with no local support to build up followers of 150,000 on the X platform and to exceed, you know, up to anywhere like 20-30 million views of extreme content, you know, extremist content from that individual, right? They're really responsible for a significant amount of far-right content on that side. So it's dangerous in the sense that it normalizes that particular language. I think looking at the longer picture, I think it speaks to something that's going on around power and democracy, where, you know, the richest man in the world is able to tilt his thumb on the scales. And, you know, we've seen it very explicitly, I guess, in the recent election campaign in the US, where he's kind of backed Trump. Musk is, you know, a litigious guy. You wouldn't say necessarily he's a white supremacist. He amplifies white supremacists. He's sitting in close proximity. He's reinstated all the sort of neo-Nazi and far-right fascist accounts that were booted off because they broke the terms and conditions of the company previously. So the guy's as close to being that in terms of what he does, and in effect he's kind of amplifying and marshalling white supremacy. We would also say, though, I think that the focus exclusively on X also can be a bit of a, not distraction, but actually misdiagnoses the problem. So what we have here now is a particular form of capital that has a particular ideological bent that sees the political landscape changing from 2016 to now. So they've slashed all their trust and safety teams right across the board. We've seen this, you know, the reinstatement of fascist and far-right organisations, where we see authoritarian regimes, whether elected or not, come into place. These platforms are very happy to work alongside them. So the idea around sort of the regulation of the platforms, which the Digital Services Act, I guess, tries to give effect to, we have to see how that plays out in reality. But I think that these companies are, the terms and conditions and the way they act are politically contingent to the sort of political forces that are around them. And I think that Musk is a bellwether in the sense that he's telling us where this stuff goes if democratic elected governments and actually people who have like shared values of care, solidarity, democracy, if we don't have, you know, if we don't have access to regulation of this stuff, this is the direction that it's going.
In an attempt to reorganise after the 3rd of August, Less than a week later in Belfast, we witnessed a clear rejection once again by anti-racist protesters who outnumbered the far right 10 to 1. This sentiment was echoed during the Irish elections in November, when anti-immigrant candidates such as Gavin Pepper and Derek Blythe, amongst others, were given a firm no by the electorate. However, with establishment parties pandering to elements of the far right, along with Elon Musk's interference in promotion of the worst elements of Irish society, it's not a time to be complacent.